Hi, Dylan.
Hello, how
Can
are
you
you
hear
this?
me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're a little far away. Sounds like you're far away, but I can hear you.
Yeah, I don't know how to solve that problem because it's
Yeah,
like
I'll just see if
directly above, but I can try to turn up the volume here.
I can try to turn up the volume too. Okay, I'm sure we're going to be fine.
I hope so.
Yeah, that sounds good. I just turned you up, so you're good.
Perfect. Well, we'll just I'm gonna mute it until everyone else arrives, just so we don't get a bunch of people coming in and out. So I'll unmute again just before we start.
Sounds good.
he's probably never gonna be the same, you know. It's a lot of trauma. So now he's,
Anything either way.
you have to be careful because you can't have a replay, so.
Don't understand
Mhm.
the value of that.
You know, it's just.
Missing a meeting is one thing, not having the courtesy to let someone know.
You know.
Who's not coming?
I mean.
Well, we don't know.
Yeah.
The doctors can.
Yeah.
He was online, but no one else has
They
joined.
were
Yes, we
preparing
will
for a
consider.
nursing home, and I'm like.
I think Michael will be here. I assume by his email that he's in person. He can be late to Zoom. I guess you could.
If you're like
But
rushing.
that would be the height
From
of
a Zoom to a
something if you
Zoom.
were late to a Zoom.
Right.
Oh, it happens. You know, it's like you're coming from one meeting to the next, but.
At some point, you have to go to that.
That's true.
Maybe you could put up just a picture of you that kind of moves just a little bit. You know, with all the AI stuff, you can make your own person there. It wouldn't even be you.
The last thing I do is use
I
AI.
don't know how to do it.
I don't want to.
I've seen it.
do it.
It's pretty, I mean, the thing is, it's
Of
like,
course you know. how to
you basically do it like a Google search, unless you're trying to like make pictures and videos, which I don't know how to do.
Right.
But if it's like,
We got it
I
for a
want
lot
you to
longer.
pull the 10 biggest cities in Denver and tell me their regulations about this, where you pull 10 of their codes.
It's very helpful.
And then home and they.
Oh, yeah.
It's a slippery slope. Yeah, it's real easy for that, it works great.
Well,
It'll just be that much easier to slip into something you.
But you need to vet it. You need
Yeah.
to make sure and go, look, is that
You
true?
still
Or is
have
it
to
just
go
flying
on.
it, you know?
Bring out the packet as a PDF, and I get a thing, this looks like a large document. It's
Yep.
like AI
Yep.
to
Yeah.
summarize
Yeah.
it.
I do.
10 days.
Stop asking me.
See what happens.
Quit asking me.
So he's on blood thinners. And.
Oh,
So Margaret
Margaret's in
just
the Zoom?
joined,
Oh, your veins and stuff.
I'll just allow her to talk.
Get your blood.
All right, so looks like for my computer, it's 9:01, so whenever you're.
Blood thinners, they don't.
ready to
So
get started.
basically, it's brain.
Hello?
Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Margaret.
Hi. Sorry, I'm not down the street. I'm still getting over this cold I've had for like, that's just over 2 weeks now. So, and I have cataract surgery later today, so I'm with you from here.
Hey.
And Reba is.
I'm here.
Reba is.
Hi, Reba.
And
Hi.
Mike apparently got caught in traffic. So at 9:02. January 12th, 2026 meeting of the Historic Sites and Facilities Board will come to order. We have a roll call, please.
Margaret Smith,
Present?
Lou Howard. Here. Reba Bechtel,
Here.
Vice Chair Michael Davenport, Chair Phyllis Adams.
Here,
Thank you.
thank you. I'm gonna guess, since there's no one else in the room, that we don't have any public comment.
Not in person. Anybody online?
Nobody else online either.
Is there any conflict of interest? We're not talking about making any recommendation, but. Approval of the minutes, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from October 13th, last year?
I wasn't here, so I can't make.
Of course,
I move to approve the minutes from October 13, 2025.
no. I don't personally never have thought it was necessary to be present in order to later vote, but I will second that motion, since I was here.
Well, just because I wasn't here when I read the minutes, I don't know if it's, that's what happened, so that's why I'm saying no.
So we have a motion to approve the minutes from October 13th, 2025. Those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. General updates.
I'll give a couple of general updates on some things that are sort of related. First is that grant award for the Colorado 150 America 250 celebration. Did receive the $25,000 award for the grant to do digital multimedia tour of town, which will include all of the city sites and facilities, which will be nice. It can't get started until probably February when they execute the grant, those things, but that's exciting. The other thing to mention is Business and Community Promotions Board. They're doing a wayfinding study for wayfinding businesses and different city sites. And so that's underway, and I'm using that as an opportunity to also have them analyze wayfinding for our historical sites and facilities, like the Powder House or the Water Wheel, or those sorts of things. So that's supposed to sort of go through the first half of 2026. So hopefully that means installation of some of that signage could happen later in 2026 or next year, early next year. So those are the non-sites and facilities specific related updates, but I figured we could dig into like different sites when we kind of talk 2026 plans for improvements and things like that.
Okay, thank you. Next, we're moving right along. New business. And the first part of that is the approval of the brass plaque sign groups.
And just to note, at the last meeting in October, you had given me the go ahead to just order them, but it took a while to actually get proofs. And I figured, well, might as well bring it to the board to see if you have any comments. So
Well, I do.
that's the packet. That's
The first one, they are historic sites as opposed to
Rather than-
historical.
I was having a hawing on which
Well,
I couldn't
one
remember
thing,
what we had.
historic is old, historical is about being.
Oh, sure. Okay, well, that's an easy
Could
change.
someone at the historic society explain that to me?
I see. It's good to know. I even, I did not use AI, but I did do a Google search. I figured it's a good note,
And
so.
you found the missing R in the restaurant.
Yes,
Does anyone else? Hopefully everyone took the time to actually read these. Anyone else have any comments on the plaques?
I do not.
Okay, just a reminder that there will be 2 of the cemetery ones.
good point. That is also a good reminder. I probably would have just ordered one, so
You could have gone back and done it again.
of course, yes.
Um,
I didn't notice anything else myself, but, you know, obviously as it's shown in here, and I mentioned this, they're all slightly different sizes, and I guess that's sort of how it is, but
Size, the length, top to bottom, always was relative to how many words there were. And if we just decided, oh, they all have to be the same size, and then you look at like the 1 or 2 sentence thing for the Veterans Memorial, that's gonna look silly.
Yeah.
would. Yes, okay, perfect. All right, well,
Anyone else have any comments or questions for Dylan about these plaques?
if not, I will get them ordered this week, and they'll come in the next month or so, and then we can start getting them installed.
Will Vinnie come and install them?
They typically do not, but we probably could work with them to see what it costs actually to have it installed. I know with some of the posts, like the ribbon column, things like that.
Well, if you're gonna get something this wide, you wanna think about how many, is it a single post in the middle, or is it one on either side? Winds we had recently might have, there he is. Might have done some damage.
I'll go ahead and make the regular for, Davenport at 9:11.
Just reviewing the proofs. What?
How to watch that traffic.
Hello? Hello?
Michael,
Hi, Margaret.
Michael has a racket.
Hello?
Margaret, your hands up.
Wait, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm having a bit of trouble hearing, because my ears are kind of plugged. Plus, it's not the best clarity. So, this may already been covered, but bear with me. Um, we are we still hopefully planning to have like a connection where they can people that are touring will be able to uh have log into something that gives them more detailed, like I forget what the name of it is, you know, but for each historic site, where they can play something and gives them a whole lot more information.
Yes.
I can't remember what that's called, but
Yeah, so we did receive a $25,000 grant to do digital, like, tour materials that will go on our Visit Idaho Springs website, and part of that would be those QR codes to direct people to the site with pictures and like transcription, like someone reading the text and all of that. So that probably won't be operational until mid-year, but that will start as sort of a similar but separate project.
okay, so that way people could get more detail. I can lower my thing. People can get more detail, on a particular site. Then, is that what you're saying? We will ultimately have.
Yes, yeah, and so, right, because obviously on these brass plaques, you can only put so much information. So the goal will be to expand on that digitally and include historic photos, and if there's any videos and things like that, that could be added as well. And then you would just scan the code, that'll be a separate small sign that would then bring you to all that information.
And will we be responsible for that content? I would think.
I think we'll have input, but probably not be ultimately responsible. Because this grant that Dylan has mentioned covers more than just the historic sites in town. Downtown.
And also, I know we're holding off on the train, because of a lot that's still up in the air there about where we put and how many. We probably have I'm sure more than one plaque. But I noticed you don't have the the water wheel plaque. Or did I miss something?
The water wheel has a lot of signage. We kind of thought all it needs is the addition of the generic.
Go ahead.
All it needs is the one that's the small one that says Idaho Springs Historic Site. The water wheel, as you may recall, has a lot of signage there already. We felt that we couldn't really add too much to it. Same thing with Steve Canyon, with all those signs around the base.
Okay. All right. I had forgotten that's what was decided. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I know there were a few potential updates, but at the last meeting, it was decided that we would address that as a new sign is needed, I think was the idea, because eventually it'll have to be restored or replaced. Then we could add that additional info.
Penny Lane.
Right.
Okay, well, if no one else has questions or input, then I guess go for it and order them.
Okay.
And whatever, you've got to work with Public Works to get signed posts up in some location. And there is still the idea that was mentioned before, I think Michael brought it up, specifically at the Steve Canyon statue, that it might be cool to have a rock. If we could find one that had a sufficiently flat surface that the little plaque could be put on. Again, that's not gonna get a big one, it's just gonna get a small one. So tell Ed to have his boys out looking for rocks.
Okay,
We have rocks.
Well,
But we need a rock with a,
I know.
and there might be a lot just down the road, just down the interstate
yes.
to look at.
Right.
Yeah.
and put up black masks and sneak in at night. Okay, the work plan for 2026, which also Dylan has covered in his report, so go ahead.
sure. So now that we're in 2026, I thought for this first meeting, we should talk about what the board had already mentioned for 2026 in the preservation plan, and then what the city likely can or cannot do, I suppose. And to start it off, I thought we should go back to 2025 to see what had been done, or more importantly, had not been from the preservation plan that has rolled over. So that would include the paint, scraping and painting wood elements at the Carnegie Library and the Central Hose House. Other, like repairing masonry at the library, repairing the roof as needed at the Central Hose House, threshold issues at Hose House number 2, and then a deck evaluation at City Hall. And so those were things that did not get done as far as I can tell. So the plan certainly is to do the, start on all of those in 2026. Scrape and paint work at the library and at Central Hose House with matching colors. Restoring the door, which was a 2026 plan item at the library. And so on those items, do you want to see any of that come to the board for review?
Before we answer that question, we've got 4 bullet points of things that should have carried over, but you only mentioned 2 of them. Is there a reason we're not gonna work on Central Hose?
Well, Central Hose certainly wouldn't have all the paint and scraping work done
Well, I just
along
wondered.
with the
'cause you
library.
didn't- In the paragraph, under the bullet points, you didn't mention it, you only mentioned 2 things that
Yeah,
are planned to be done.
the plan will be to do the scrape and paint work at the library and Central Hose House, matching existing colors, and then front doors, but I did not mention the deck, but the deck I mentioned
That's just.
below
Okay,
about,
all right,
um,
my mistake.
anyway. But
I read past things, so I missed it.
But I did not mention the threshold issues at Hose House number 2, except that we also mentioned the interior wall plaster issues for 2026, so that feels like we kind of do it all together.
Okay, so back to your question then. What did the rest of the board members think? Do we just want to be informed when the work is done? Do we want to see have input on who the vendor should be? We're not in a position to approve money. We only recommend the city council, but.
I think if it's basically repair and maintenance type of work, I don't think we need to be able to review that in advance. I think we could rely upon staff. If there's anything that's going to change something to where it would look different if someone saw it, that's something that this board should be seeing before something gets changed.
Well, I would, from my perspective, I'd like to be told we've got the money, we're gonna be doing the work in the next month, and who's doing it. It's not in our purview to decide on, well, that's too much money, or you should pick this bid instead of that bid. I don't think we need to be in that business. I agree with Mike in general. I would point out, however, if something's being done that would change the appearance, all of these places fall under HPRC.
Mhm.
So HPRC would have to approve it.
Yeah.
But we would be the applicant.
Yes, so it would have to come to us. I think the other thing, and this is maybe sort of a side point, is that since we only meet quarterly, if there are things that come up in between our meetings so that staff doesn't have to wait several months, do we want to consider, is there some interim things that we'd be able to do, whether it's the chair gets notified or we all get notified, and if anyone has a concern, like, do we schedule a special meeting? Just the main point being is that, say if something were to happen later this month, but we're not meeting until April, and it's something we should look at, or someone from this board should look at, should we have a way of doing it, of dealing with
I
that?
think without ever trying to make it official, we do. Dylan certainly has our email.
Okay, so by email, we all get
Well,
notified.
There have been a couple of very minor things in the past year that he called me about,
Okay,
but nothing that. It was more like, should I put this on the agenda, sorts of things.
Yeah.
So
that'd be fine, it'd be fine with if the chairperson is notified of things
well,
in between, I'd be fine with that.
notification is fine, but to approve something, I'm not comfortable with me or any other one person doing it. But we always have the option to call special meetings, of
And
course,
that's what I'm
but
wondering.
we can also meet in quotes by email.
Okay,
If everyone will check their email and respond promptly, and if you don't, then it's as if you wanted a meeting.
okay. So if there are things that come up with on bids or whatever, if the chairperson is notified, and then if she thinks the rest of us need to be notified or a special meeting, that's how we'll proceed.
That's how we did it. It works. That's how.
Okay.
Yeah.
That works for me. I will say, it seems like unless there's an emergency situation where you say this thing's falling down, we need to fix it.
Yes.
We should have enough foresight to plan work where we can schedule it for a regular meeting, hopefully, usually. But in the cases where that doesn't happen, then
Weather can get in the way, seasonal impacts.
right.
If it's something we're relying on public works to do. And suddenly their staffing were to unfortunately be diminished one way or another. They simply wouldn't have the manpower. Yeah. We always have the option to call
Okay.
special meeting.
And I've noticed in the minutes several times it's been mentioned about this board not being notified before something happens. So maybe it's just asking for staff to go back and look at the minutes and say, okay, these things will be at least the chairperson at least will be notified on these types of matters that have been mentioned in past minutes where the board was not notified.
In the past minutes was the city went ahead and got a bid for repair of the water wheel. And the ordinance that created this board clearly says that this board should be involved in all aspects. So was what that was about, and staff would ask not to do that again.
Yeah, well, and I would say in
And
general,
responders,
if
yes.
we're getting a bid, normally a 3-month, even if it's a 3-month schedule, we probably knew we were getting a bid on it with enough advance notice that we could have planned it where it would coincide with
And
the
beyond that,
meeting.
before you get a bid, we should not, that's when we should come in first say, yes, okay, let's fix this, and then let them get their bids and do all the city processes.
So as we look ahead, I think, and certainly I think we'd get a bid or at least a quote for like the paint work, trim work, repair work at the library and Central Hose House. I don't know when we'll get those sort of start on that. Certainly you're not going to paint in the middle of winter, so it will probably be a spring item, but would you want, even though it is just paint and nothing's changing, would it make sense for us to schedule it for the April meeting and have that sort of item ahead of there? Or is it only if it is like a major repair, like
I
the
don't
water
think,
wheel?
I don't think it has to wait that long. Get your bid, even if they don't pay until September.
Sure. And then we can just notify you at the next.
Just let
meeting
us
that-
know that it's happening. Just don't leave us in the dark. We don't necessarily have to. There are certain things we have to be involved in, but there's a lot of things we can avoid.
Right.
It's nevertheless good to know about.
Hello?
Oh,
I'm not,
Hey, I'm concerned, well, I don't know if that's the correct word, but along all these lines we're talking about, what should be talked about or not involved with, as far as the with the coach and the engine and all of that. I'm unaware of what is going on or in what I should be or if I should be involved with anything. I'm unclear at this point. Um, you know, what my involvement should be, or somebody tell me what I'm supposed to be doing.
are you like us to stay on track with where we are in the agenda, but we will. I think I understand what you're asking, but let's interrupt the discussion that we're in the middle of right now. And we'll get back to that, and if I don't do it, absolutely speak up again and remind me.
but I will definitely want to talk about the train today, so
Yes,
that will be the next.
so finishing where we are.
I'm looking for like well, just like you were talking about, certain things coming through the board, on other items that you're talking about. And likewise with the trains and that. So yes, I'm not trying to go out of line. I thought it was like in line with what you're talking about is what we're supposed to be involved or somehow or other informed, or are we supposed to be, or for example, myself, be seeking out more information. I guess I just don't know what my role is at this point in regards to that, or what the board's role is. I'm confused, of course.
Well, I think hopefully we can help clear that up for you, but not right this second.
Okay.
Okay, as we continue working through Dylan's report, I am concerned.
I can't
Determine,
find.
determine use of the Brian Hose House. I agree. Public Works has considered using it for storage in the interim. Why only in the interim? I don't see a better use for that little building.
Well, I think I put in the interim because we had not specifically talked about just sort of permanently doing that. And it was on the preservation plan to determine that use.
It's not, we can recommend that it's council's decision.
Sure, but, I think similarly to the Western Hose House, at the last meeting, we had discussed maybe doesn't make sense to just use that for storage, because there could be a better use for that, and there's issues with the moisture still and all of that. Brian Hose House, you can't see inside it other than those two
Yeah.
small windows, so it probably does make sense to just use it for storage. But if Sites and Facilities has any better suggestion?
Well, I would ask Andy, has the decision been made or has it been has council been asked? Does Ed intend to get permission to use it or where? He's not intending to get permission. Or he just
I
hasn't.
think it's an open question.
I see, okay.
Yeah, because they had
Much different.
mentioned, he had mentioned in the fall that there's plenty of things that could be stored in there. But I don't think it's gone anywhere beyond that.
Well, that's always been, given its logistics, there's no way it could really, aside from on a walking tour, walking by and looking at it. There's no parking there, oh, right, it was the word interim that got.
I see.
Okay.
But you would be, as a board, okay if it were just used as city storage?
What do the rest of you think?
I think it's a great place for storage.
I'm surprised they need it since they now have this great big public works building, but I know they lost their storage shed at the ball field.
I think there's a value sort of in having sort of storage locations in several places in the city. I think that would just, so I think storage is a good idea, and I think having sort of remote storage locations is probably something handy for public works.
Well, it could be, and don't want to stick in there, I don't. Okay, ladies on Zoom, do you have any objection to the Brian Hose House being used for storage by Public Works?
No objection.
Margaret?
No,
Well, that's an unofficial. I don't think that's something we need to vote on. Right. So now to talk about the train, the track, and the coach. We've always known that it was relying on funding. And unfortunately, I can't say I'm surprised that it's kind of out of the picture right now to build the shelter that we talked about. The city's been looking into, quote, temporary shelter actions. Temporary, can someone define? If it doesn't happen until next year, would this be temporary for 1 year, for 5 years? What?
So I would say the goal is to have that proper wooden metal structure that is a permanent
Yeah.
30, 50, however long it will last structure. But when that got quoted for price, it's over $1 million. That doesn't include some of the improvements associated with moving the tracks, getting that installed, all of that. So it's at least $1 million project, which the city doesn't have. So when I say temporary, it would be build something that keeps it from the weather and from the sun, from salt, from the highway, but is not intended to last 30 years. It might last
That's a
5
big-
years, but
1 year and 30 years is a big gap. And spending $100,000 even. In the scope of things these days, I know that's not much for things that the city does, but it does seem odd to spend that kind of money for something that you hope will no longer be needed in 2 years.
right. The alternative, let's say that is true and we are able to fund a
Yeah.
permanent structure in 2 years. The alternative, I suppose, to that would be where we say, let's not get something to at least protect it on the temporary basis is we leave the coach covered up at, so we're a little more covered here, or is it exposed to the elements here? And whether that's a effective use of the hundreds of thousands that were spent on
Can
the
you-
coach.
Can you tell us a little bit? You're looking at a temporary structure. Cost estimate $100,000. You have a design, who came up with the $100,000 figure, how realistic is it? Can you give us some sort of a mental picture of what a temporary structure might look like?
So working with Andy, we've talked about sort of a tent membrane sort of structure that would maybe, you have like posts, of course, metal posts tall enough, canvas or Tyvek, whatever the sort of tent structure would be to protect it from those elements, but it's not intended to last that period of time. And so I would say, I don't know, have we talked at all to any of the like Denver tent
I think
companies?
that'd be the next step, was to have some firms come up and give us some proposals, give some assessments of what it might look like.
Right,
So would that allow people to be able to see the coach?
That would be the idea.
the idea would be to have it cover like a permanent cover would be, but it's just using much cheaper materials that aren't intended to last.
So when you say cover, you're not talking about an envelope, you're talking about a shelter.
A shelter.
Shelter,
Kind of like a circus tent.
kind of, yes. Hopefully it doesn't look like a circus tent, but that would sort of be the idea. So it'd probably be open on the sides.
Do anything to attract people to town.
That's true. You make it yellow and red,
Yeah.
right? With
It's almost a
sections.
circus drink, whatever.
Because there are kind of look like a canvas tent like you'd see during the railroad days when people moved up from gold mining and all that. Maybe that's the vision I see in my head is,
Okay, and I get that the cover would protect it from sun coming straight down and rain and snow, hail,
right,
but the interstate side of it needs protection from the sun, which means you can't just have an overhead. You've got to have a side
sure.
so people can see it as long as they walk on, excuse me, the city hall side of it.
Mhm.
What's that?
The tent could even be large enough that you could walk around it.
That might increase the cost as
It
well.
would.
Well, and perhaps there's an idea where you have it, post to post, and you kind of have it, so there's a canvas side, and it's sort of like a, two-sided. So yeah, if you walked from the water wheel or from the highway, you'd see just a canvas tent siding. But if you look out the window here, you still see the
Yes.
coach and the engine.
Okay.
I think that's sort of the idea, but hasn't been
How did you come
pursued
up with
enough.
the 100,000? Is that just a number that,
Yeah, it's not based on actually talking to tent companies, but
so it could be less, could be more. But it certainly could be less.
right, I mean, fingers crossed it would be less. That the other idea is because it's not this permanent structure, you can probably leave it in place for the interim, which reduces all of the relocation costs. But that's not really factored into $100,000.
Can I ask a question there, please?
Okay.
Of course,
What's driving, here again, you're talking about $100,000 that basically is just money wasted in the long run, correct? Because it's not going to last. It's not. And what is driving the need? I mean, to bring it back here prematurely, I guess is my question, before we're ready, because couldn't that money go towards starting the asbestos, the remediation on the engine and get that part going, or is, it seems like $100,000 wasted.
Well, the reason to spend this money or any money, I think, is that people would like to see the coach back in Idaho Springs. It doesn't belong to Silver Plume, it belongs to Idaho Springs. And
No,
it cannot be back here unless it's protected.
Yeah, I mean, I get that part. I mean, I understand that. It's just
Here's
that money is so.
Well, money is council's problem.
well, that is part of what the reason to bring it up today is if the recommendation from this board is to say, we're okay to leave it up there, if council's okay with that, and leave it just with an envelope cover around it to protect it, but no one really sees it, knowing that it might be 5 years, but we will get it back, is a question that maybe isn't decided today, but could be the topic before we spend any money.
Perhaps we could have a discussion about that, hopefully with everyone present. And then, I suppose, through Dylan's reports to council, get our recommendation to them. I know, and I'm talking about not necessarily the current council, but past council, there was a real desire to get it back to town. And that, I don't know what people in town know or think about it. But Margaret, the reason to spend anything, what was driving it was the desire to have it back in town.
Right.
Whether that is a good reason or whether that's a good decision, I don't think has been decided yet.
Well, I mean, at least before, like, relocation of the track and some of the preliminary other things that go along with bringing it back. I mean, we should consider if we can do any of that beforehand. Even if we can't, obviously we can't have. It sounds like we can't expect the whole everything that we want this year, but can an estimate that would tell us, and maybe it's already there, just the preparation of the grounds and like I said, bring it back, put it in the position, at least if we're going to do that, have it in the position where it's going to be like we're going to move everything closer to minor and that whole thing. Or are we just going to bring it back to it seems like that might, if we could do some of that preliminary work on the ground. I'm not thinking real clearly, but I'm trying to say is where we have to, move the move things in the parking lot and get the track closer to minor, kind of those kinds of things prepped before we bring it back, whenever we bring it back. It would seem like we'd want to have some of that done and maybe get that price separately. Am I clear at all?
I think, Margaret, that what you're saying makes sense. And I was also wondering if there's been any additional looking into pricing for a permanent structure, other than that huge price that
Right.
council saw.
That's right. That was something we were gonna try to, attack from another angle. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
I wonder if for the next meeting of this board, if something that staff could put together is to present several alternatives that have some dollars attached to it and have a short-term and long-term also attached to each alternative. And are there certain preconditions? In other words, not detailed cost estimates, but a ballpark estimate that we are in the ballpark, and it's not just a number that might look good in a budget, but we don't know if it's a lot more or it's a lot less. But just to ask staff to sort of organize that for us, present us several alternatives as to stays in Silver Plume, comes back here, temporary structure, permanent structure, and just so we can sort of see that all in advance, because I think it would help the discussion if we could get all those things laid out.
or a
Well-
staged approach over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yes, yeah, so yeah, short and long term. What we're doing.
I think we need to remember, well, I can't say remember, I will ask Andy again. The idea of flipping the train around so that it faces out to Minor, which would involve raising and relaying the tracks, moving the remembrance wall, is that cast in stone?
No.
He says no.
I think the only concern with leaving it where it is the overhead lines and having a structure that gives it, like, you can't really build a structure over the
And
train.
I-70, all of that coming off of I-70.
And I think the train used to be in a different location years ago.
Used to be across the
It's
street.
shifted now, but
Well, I do think that's a good idea, where we say, all right, for this next meeting, let's get the cost of tent structure with, that's, two-sided sort of thing. Leaving it here, what's the cost of the infrastructure necessary to relocate it to that stretch without a permanent structure or a tent? What's just the cost of that? And what is that? A plan that could be like a 3 to 5
Could I
year
ask you
plan.
to put it in some kind of a visual form, a graphic,
Sure,
form
tables,
rather
graphs.
than just paragraphs?
Sure.
Um,
It's
What, you mean like
like-
include a map or something?
Well, no, I mean like,
Right, yeah, like a table that says option 1,
that's.
Relocation,
I think it's more
cost,
visual
timeline.
than just,
yes, I can do that.
Another question, if it seemed like we had the train engine facing Minor Street is what I think I follow. But what if we put the coach out by Minor Street and left the engine facing the direction it is, even though we're moving it closer to Minor Street? Then if we could construct, for example, the tracks for the coach first and get it moved while the remediation for the engine happens later, some of those kinds of ideas just to keep, so we don't move the coach twice.
Right.
um,
I think that's what I was trying
I
to,
think the idea with moving, realigning, repositioning the train is for the visual impact and to draw people into town, and I'm not sure the back end of a coach would have the same impact as the front end of a locomotive. Nevertheless, if we want to look at a lot of options so that we know what we can decide what we want to recommend to council, then sure.
I think it's worth looking at, because to Reba's point, if you can run tracks and just set it there, and then once that's ready, you just push it along the tracks to
But
connect.
you're not going to be able to do that because you don't have enough track. Once you do that, you're gonna have a gap.
I thought the drawings that we've looked at for the whole project had the coach in front of,
Oh.
closest to Minor Street.
It was turning it around completely. It looked like it was ready to pull out onto Minor Street.
With
Well-
with the engine in front, you're saying? It's not my work.
And that was proposed, nothing has been approved.
Right.
But I
Yeah,
do think that, well, all options at this point are worth considering, since cost is such a high placed issue here. I don't know that the back end of the coach would be as attractive in terms of getting people to come in.
I think it
Alex?
was, excuse me, I thought, and should be able to go back and look, but I thought it was gonna be at such an angle that I get what you're saying. I thought it was gonna be at such an angle that it wouldn't be like you're saying, we're just looking at the back end, but that it was going to be at somewhat of an angle, but to me, the most important part is just to get the train, whichever part of the train, get it visible from close to Minor, and maybe try to do what's most expeditious at this point or cost effective. I don't, I think it warrants more discussion.
That's exactly why we're talking about putting it on our next, our April agenda. And hopefully everyone can be here to participate.
And it would be good to include those previously developed plans. So we're talking, well, so we can see what we're talking about. What, what was it?
I think, personally, I think we should not necessarily do that. I think everyone's got a fairly clear understanding of those. But let's, if we want to have those, then everything needs to be geared toward to accomplish this plan. We gotta do this. Okay, so there's a big agenda item for next time.
I do think that's right now the biggest question mark of sites and facilities in the city compared to these other ones. Relatively speaking, the dollars required for these other questions are lower.
Okay. Moving on through Dylan's report. For clarity, rebuild, restore the deck at City Hall based on the evaluation. So is it the thought that the evaluation and the work would be done in 2026?
I would hope so.
Hope. I understand. Hope is the four-letter word we use.
As with anything, if the evaluation's done and they say it's $10,000 worth of work, making up a number, if they say it's $50,000 worth of work, 100, that might not be in the budget, but if it's minor repair, not a full rebuild, then I would imagine easier to do in the year.
So, then maybe this reference talking to Andy, so maybe we need to ask Andy. I know that you want to get a state historic fund grant to do work on the locomotive. So I have a couple of questions. Talking about a 25% match, that's the minimum, is it not? Is there any way we can do a higher match? That improves your odds. So when the time comes and cash is available, and then have you thought about how you would pay for that if you're unsuccessful with your state historic fund grant?
They have 2 cycles a year, so
Yeah.
I would definitely want to, if we're not successful the first time, maybe go back the next time, get some feedback, see. So, do that.
Okay,
And that would be the goal of applying sooner rather than later, even though on the preservation plan, we call for restoration next year. If funds, first round, great, we have them, but if not, the backup plan is apply their feedback, and then the plan C, I suppose, would visit it through different funding avenues. But I don't know that there is a plan C right now. Sure.
okay. Then skipping on through this, what Dylan had written down about the American 250 Colorado 150 grant award and the wayfinding project, he mentioned earlier, so we got go over that again. Finally, we've just decided on a huge agenda item for April. But I would also like us, unless someone has an objection, to talk about doing outreach. Ourselves, not through Visit Idaho Springs or anything else. 4th grade is the year when the kids learn Colorado history. And so I would, whether we get it in current school year or plan for it next year through the teachers. I think would be good to arrange to talk to the fourth graders at Carlson about the historic sites in their town and how the city is working to protect them and what some of the background is. The business about George Jackson never kissed a woman and never took a bath, but it's probably a connection there, but anyway, I think that is something.
Huh?
Are you talking to us?
No, I'm sorry, no.
I think while you would angle things one way for fourth graders, the basic concepts could be massaged a little bit and you would have to take to Rotary, that you could take to the garden club. You could take to any organization that was interested, actually. We are supposed to be doing outreach. And as we've been talking about the train, it was going through my head that people in town, they know it's here or they know it's gone, but they don't understand why. Probably a lot of them don't care, but maybe we could do something to try to change that. Right. And so I would propose that a script and possibly a PowerPoint, which wouldn't always work. Given the location meetings of these organizations. But that's something needs to be put together and perhaps I ran out of words. That we can have something that would be informative, not overly complicated, pretty much in plain language. I think that's something that we need to look at, and I would like to, if no one objects, I would like to take a shot at writing a script and having it on the agenda for input from the rest of the board.
Okay, never mind.
Does that make sense?
Yes. One other thing to think about is something like a quarterly newsletter. If it's a case of the community not knowing what's going on, something that could be emailed out to people, just saying, here's what's going on with historic facilities in the town.
Is the city still doing any kind?
Every other month.
Okay,
So I could create a sites and facilities
so we could
section.
have a little column.
Yes.
That's a good idea, because I often struggle to add things to it. Like, what do people care about of what I do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, that's the wrong thing.
Sure, but now this is a very positive, educational / informative section that could be added every other month.
And from the staff report, there's actually quite a bit going on. And so the citizens sort of know there's things that are taking place regarding the history.
Consider, this is hindsight, but the people that live down around Sixth and Colorado, were they told all that work was gonna be going on? I doubt it. So just letting them know, and while we generally don't have any more issues or any more projects that are of even that scale. Right, the biggest one is obviously right here, and there's no residential neighbors. But people should still be aware. I mean, at the end of the day, this is their tax dollars that we're spending.
Well, I think even the doors at the library, that's worth informing the public that that is how their money is getting used.
Well, then. You want help writing your article? Let me know. But I'm
Okay.
pretty sure you can do it.
Well, for the first one, I don't know, does it come out will there be a February? Or
I
is
think
it
it's February, is the next.
So
edition,
you do
so-
it in the even months.
So maybe what I'll do for this first one is I'll write something up and send it by email to everyone. And so that way you get a sneak peek, plus if you have any recommendations, you can provide them, and if you don't have time to read it, no problem.
Because even another, we were mentioning possible groups for the educational thing with the board group. I mean, for example, if there's the local association of the Board of Realtors, that would probably be of some interest to them as well, of knowing things are being done regarding the history of the town, because that's a selling point.
There are two realtors in town, you know, association. But your point is well taken. Garden Club and Rotary, because I have spoken to both in the past on other things, think about it. I don't know. The Historical Society, at their annual meeting, seem to always need some kind of a program. That's a possibility.
I can see.
Well, there's a lot of groups that potentially could come to mind, so if there's
Yeah.
something generally
Or somebody
created,
hears about it,
and we could
they
set
tell their
something-
friend, and hey, this group I know would like to hear about.
Well, and I think there's some environmental groups that they're not directly associated, but the preservation of buildings, do all that could help inform people.
First and
environmental
foremost, I really would like to take this to the school.
Right,
You know, if you want parents to learn anything, the way to do it is to teach the kids.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what it is, that's just how it works.
on the subject of the school, would it be helpful ahead of the next meeting, on my end, to start talking to some folks at Carlson, just to kind of get it on their radar and gauge interest,
I was
or
gonna do
you're happy
that.
to do that?
No. You're not done with the comp plan yet.
I'm not, but I'm always happy to talk to folks at the school. But, I'm happy to,
I had thought I would just throw it out there. I don't even know. With enrollment changes, how many fourth grade classes are there now? I don't know.
at least,
I would think there'd be at least two.
there's at
but there might
least
be-
two.
There used to
There
be
might
three. Anyway. Just, and maybe we can't get it together to do it before school's out this year. But if we could do it when the weather's warm, either at the beginning of the year or the end of the year, and maybe do a little walking tour with fourth graders, at least over to the water wheel and point out Blue Ribbon Tunnel, Central Hose House.
We should have our walking tour probably published by then.
Anyway. Something that I was hoping to see on next month's agenda, so. If I get that down and I get it to you, so you can, wonder can put it in our packets. Does anyone else have any other suggestions for future agendas or just general comments? Zoom ladies, I like that name for you, by the way.
I don't have anything else.
Margaret, have we answered your, we didn't specifically answer Margaret's question. She wanted to know what she or we should be doing. And my answer is not too much. I don't think we need to be gathering more information until we know what design we're gonna have. We don't know how many signs. That's why at our last meeting, we voted to approve all the signs except those for the train, because we didn't know. So Margaret, I think you're good for now. I think
Well-
we're all on that, in that respect.
Well, I was gonna say, that, I have a real genuine interest in this. I've just had some other personal things also coming into play where I haven't been able to just go do it. So I would like to certainly before the next meeting, kind of try to get, maybe I could pull together some of the bits and pieces, get with, Andy and Dylan and get, I know those drawings are out there like Mike, you were alluding to and I was alluding to, at least, get this picture. I would like to go ahead and do something like that. I don't know, that would at least, so that we would have a sense of progress of some sort. And even like to the point of where do we leave off on looking at something less than $1 million and things like that. And so I'll leave it at that. That I feel like there are things we could do perhaps to maybe push this along, whether or not it's in our purview. Someone can tell me, okay, well, it isn't,
Well, some of the things you mentioned just then aren't. We can make recommendations all day long, but if council can't find the money to implement any recommendation, then it's kind of beside the point. And I think that what we spoke about just a few minutes ago with this staff presenting all the potential scenarios, the options, and this is what it would look like if we did it this way, or this is what it would look like if we did it that way, is indeed making progress. So I'm not sure why the concern that we're not doing anything. Until, we were told today that the city is looking at this temporary structure, but they haven't even contacted anyone to get a cost, so it's not gonna be purchased in place before our next meeting.
Right.
That things just don't work that quickly.
Yeah.
So, I would suggest, Margaret, that you talk with Dylan and work out what you can if you want to be involved in that. But I would not like any of us to feel like we're not accomplishing things, because we are. Does that help? Or did I?
I think we all know, yeah, exactly where we're at there. Yeah, that helps. It's just a matter of maybe some conversations and some other things. But like you said, saying they're talking about that temporary structure, and we didn't know about that. Is that a correct statement?
There was nothing to know. They haven't even gotten a price. They've just talked about the idea. And we found it out in Dylan's report for this meeting. So there was nothing for us to have known.
Okay.
At our last meeting. Now they're going to move ahead and get some costs, and perhaps at our next meeting, we would know about the result of that investigation and then could decide, we really think that's ugly and that's not going to help the train, or we think this is great, council should absolutely do it. Whichever way we decide, then we can make a recommendation to council. So there wasn't anything for us to know. There is no obligation, and I don't think there should be any obligation for staff to run everything by us before they ever even talk about it. I mean, kind of the point of staff is that they do the talking, but they don't make the decision. So. Clear as mud, Margaret?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Clear as mud?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But it's okay. It's all right, I don't need any more information.
Okay. well,
Thank you, thank you.
It is, what time is it?
Did everybody read my cemetery?
I'm sorry?
Everybody read my cemetery. Do you have questions about that? Listen,
Okay. Well, I asked if anyone had anything. but nobody
I'm
did.
trying, but.
Okay, before we adjourn, Lou shared with all of us her annual cemetery report, which for years she has been trudging in and presenting to council at the end of every year. And she would like to know if any of us, well, she's giving us the benefit of the doubt to say we read it, so she wants to know if we have any questions.
If you have any questions?
I thought it was a good report. I don't have anything to add to it, but I thought it was thorough. So I thought it was helpful.
I always wanted to make sure that I let you know every year what's going on, so, yeah, I figure that's the easiest way.
That, as you have been doing pretty much since you started.
Yeah.
Handling things at the
15
cemetery.
years, 16 years.
But my only comment has nothing to do with the report. It was as usual, very good. But up until now, it's always been Lou Howard doing. Now it's the board. So I think it
Right,
needs
so you want to be informed.
to come through us, not just you going. Not that we have to make the presentation, but it needs to be clear that there's a correlation.
So is it something that should be included in the staff report every quarterly meeting? I mean, it's something that now in the future will be part of a quarterly report rather than sent out separately.
No, I don't,
Nothing
It's up-
happens
it's up to
all
her.
winter.
Yeah,
And the big thing on this year, that Andy's help, because we had all of the beetle killed trees.
No, I just mean
So
more-
it kind of preempted everything else, because that had to be.
that's why she's always come to council at the end of the year.
No, I just mean more of included like in the January staff report packet that's put together, because that's a good way of keeping track of it over time in terms of documents getting lost. If it becomes something that's part of a board packet, we know there's gonna be a place where it can be found.
You give people a lot of credit. Just totally aside. I think it's up to Lou how often she thinks. When they go for months and don't do anything because of weather or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it needs to be done every quarter, I'm just saying as a place where it goes as a document. When needed, it gets put into the packet.
Well, it's in the council packet,
Okay.
which are probably kept more.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boxes and boxes and boxes and they're all there.
So it is kept, I think the way Lou's been doing it, her timing and her thoroughness she's always done her reports that way. It's just that now she's doing this through our board, with the blessing of our board, with the support of our board. I don't know what the proper verbs are there. But, to make it clear, it's not just Lou and her group of volunteers, as it has been for some, say 16.
Yeah,
So. Okay. Anyone else? All right, at 10:13. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, and thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Reba. I'm gonna shut down the Zoom now, so have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, Dylan and Wonder. We appreciate